Alors, l'un des paradoxes, c'est évidemment, on l'a vu, le rapport du luxe et de certains réseaux sociaux, entre par exemple le luxe qui est plutôt patrimonial avec une certaine pérennité et TikTok qui est vraiment dans l'immédiateté et les micro-tendances, ben, c'est une relation a priori paradoxal. Mais il faut se méfier des apparences parce qu'il y a des tandems qui marchent très fort. Et je voudrais parler maintenant avec Tatiana et Julian pour parler du rapport de Loewe et TikTok. Welcome. Have a seat.
Merci, bonjour.
Je me suis assis en premier, c'est très très mal poli. Je continue un tout petit peu en français et puis on va passer à l'anglais juste après. Alors, je vais étonner, je disais que les codes du luxe et la grammaire de TikTok, c'est encore pour certains un paradoxe. Alors, comment une marque comme Loewe réussit avec TikTok à bâtir une stratégie vraiment de contenu ultra qualitatif et powerful, c'est ce qu'on va voir. Alors, Loewe has been on TikTok for only 2 years. And 2023 was an amazing year, in particular with TikTok. The runway, it's called TikTok is the runway. And could you explain what it is about and how you had the idea?
Of course. You know, TikTok is the Runway was Loewe's first real partnership with TikTok in a super meaningful way. And it came out of the idea that we wanted to bring our TikTok community a closer look into the show. You know, historically, it's very hard to bring the show experience outside of the show space. And so we worked very quickly with the TikTok team to find a way to bring that experience outside of the physical space. And so what we did was we had 3 different camera angles, one of which was exclusive to TikTok with a focus on accessories, so really bringing our focus products, the key items that we really wanted to push from the season, to a much closer look to our community.
Can we see a little video about that?
I like this idea that you suddenly have the coat stitch and then you reveal the back.
So as we saw, it's a very rich content, full of fashion statement, but also very impulsive, immediate, and like what TikTok is used to. So what has changed with TikTok about the way it is perceived? Is it still paradoxical to put a luxury brand with such a network?
I think there's something that's never changed on TikTok, is that it's a platform that people go to be like entertained and to find creativity. So what I think has changed is the content that you can find on TikTok. You talk about you know, immediate content, etc., but there's actually more than that, and that's also what we see in the video, and that's something that Loewe does very well, is to obviously surf on trends, but also like kind of open the doors to their brand. And you know, like organic content on TikTok, it's now up to 10 minutes, and that's something that's changed about, I think, a year and a half ago. And I think it's a very good illustration.
It's very important.
Exactly, because it obviously reflects what people are expecting on TikTok. And today, one of the most followed like hashtag on TikTok, it's actually hashtag learn on TikTok. It's more than 800 billion views, which is more than the hashtag music or the hashtag dance. So we know that people actually go to TikTok to learn about you know, any topic that are interested in, and
even
that
a
works
lot
for
of
fashion.
culture.
Exactly. So I think it's to the question, like, is it still paradoxal? I think it's evolved in the perception a lot because of the elevated content that we find on the platform, because of the partnerships that we've made. We've been partnering with the Festival de Cannes, for example, for 2 years now. We have like, you know, short film competition on TikTok, etc. So there's been a shift in the way it's being used, but it's still, and it's always going to remain like a platform for like entertainment and creativity.
But can we say that, in a way, TikTok is kind of democratizing fashion, and that people, can we assume that people feel that they are in the front row, in a way?
Yes, for sure. I mean, I think the democratization of fashion, it started a few years ago, and it's definitely an industry that's been opening up, and also because there's an appetite to understand what's going on. But for sure, TikTok is helping, and it's changing fashion. It's giving a new voice to creators. So I don't know. Hopefully, all of you are like experiencing TikTok. But there's people like this creator who's called Antoine Guérin, who's like a fashion student, and I think he's amazing. He does like videos of him basically like sewing like his little black dress on his form, and there's like classical music. So it's very slow, and it's not what some people would expect on TikTok of like just, you know, fast content. Some of his videos make like 35 million views, and it's only organic content. So there's like a strong appetite for like a new kind of fashion, and also
there's
like
a kind
opening
of
doors.
educational
Exactly.
content.
And if we look at the content from Loewe, for example, there was one of the TikTok of something that we didn't mention is like, and you can confirm, Julian, but most of the content that are on TikTok on the Loewe account, they're like only on TikTok. They're like TikTok native assets. And one of them I think is super interesting. It's the creative directors, obviously Jonathan Anderson, who's like commenting on the show and explaining, you know, why, you know, he thinks that this dress that he made, like where it looks like it's tucked into your pants, and what it creates in the show. It's obviously another way of understanding the show, and another way of like appreciating his fashion.
What about you, Julian? Do you think TikTok is democratizing fashion?
Absolutely. And I think, you know, Tatiana has hit on something that's very topical for us, and that's the idea of education. You know, as we saw in the video, a lot of the contents that perform extremely well for us on our own channel is the behind the scenes, the making of product. As, you know, an example we saw in the video is the making of our nest bag. And I think there's a real appetite for the TikTok community, and especially the Loewe audience, that's interested in seeing how things are made. How do you get this behind the scenes look? How do you invite a viewer to see you know, a really aspirational product in a very democratic way, in a way that feels tangible to them and accessible to them?
So obviously the rating views of fashion on TikTok are amazing and still growing. With over 2 billion views with the hashtag luxury, it's really evident that fashion and luxury are key. So how do actual brands, how do you advise them on content? What is the strategy, and what can you apply to all these brands, even each one with its specificity?
That's kind of the million-dollar question, because that's obviously
because there's a lot of different things. You can make unboxing, you can make style edits, educational pieces. So what is the strongest advice you can give to a brand?
I think to be able to answer this question, it's important to like understand how TikTok works. And
the algorithm is very sophisticated, let's say.
So I don't have the recipe for the algorithm. Nobody has, but there's obviously
I don't think they
things.
themselves have it.
But hopefully someone has it. but it's important to understand TikTok, it's not a social media in the sense that the algorithm, it's based on a content graph and not a social graph. So what this means is that in your feed, the content that you have, it's not just based on like your connections, your friends, your like family and the people that you will follow. It's actually, there's 2 feeds on TikTok, and most of the time is spent on the For You feed, which is the feed that will push content to you based on your interest that you declare when you log in, based obviously on the brands and the creators that you follow, but also it will test, pushing content to you. So once you have that in mind, and once you know that it's basically all about the content, it's all about the idea, then of course there are like TikTok codes, and you said it as an introduction, there's like a grammar that's specific to TikTok, but the main thing for a brand, and that's what you said, Julian, it's really like to be authentic. Like you don't have to be just playful or just fun on TikTok. If it's part of your DNA, like it is for Loewe, obviously it's going to work well, but it's more about having an idea of what you're going to say. I mean, we've seen like different examples of Loewe, I think, like using the TikTok codes in a very good way. Like the first TikTok was obviously fun, of like someone looking for the other shoe, like when you feel like there's the rush of the show that's about to start. And it says like POV, which is a very TikTok.
Point of view.
Exactly. Point of view. But then there's also like very slow videos about like savoir-faire and how they make the nest bag. And obviously it's using like ASMR, which is like, this sound technique. So it's all about having ideas and like ideas that are engaging and telling a story. And that's why we always say like it's good to have content that's native to TikTok, because when you create content for TikTok, you need to have an idea, and that's the hook. It's not just about like, any content that you will like kind of reframe or repurpose. So to the question, is it more about like unboxing or style edits or this and that? It has to be authentic to your brand.
You have to make a mix and be authentic.
Because of this like content graph, etc., you don't have to have millions of followers to do like millions of views.
That's true.
It's just about like, if the content's interesting, then you can make millions of views.
It will reach a lot of people. It's been a long way since kids dancing on ByteDance, and now we have like luxury brands like Loewe, which is so exclusive, that have access to backstage and all that, and the educational videos, of course. So TikTok has evolved amazingly. It might still evolve a lot more in the years to come. So what is your main idea? How can you advise to create contents that go with the flow and go with the TikTok progressing every day?
I think it's twofold. I think authenticity is absolutely the main sort of takeaway here. We learned very quickly early on that we could no longer syndicate institutional assets across multiple platforms. It didn't work. We saw a real change in engagement and the way our audience was engaging with our content when we started creating site-specific content. It was really the only way that felt real and authentic, and like we were bringing something unique to the audience. I think the other side of that coin is remaining agile. We have to be flexible. You have to sort of capitalize on what's happening right now, what people are interested in, and with a landscape like social media that changes exponentially from day to day, it's hard to plan so far in advance. And something we've started to do is, we wait to see how the trends change, what creators are coming up, what's feeling new, and how do we implement that in sort of a turnkey way? How can we bring them to the show? How can we create content around the show, not just from sitting in the audience, but how do we give them access to the product firsthand? How do we allow them to really showcase our product through their lens?
That brings us to the point of human resource. I mean, of course, in fashion before, it was very kind of easy. You would call Jürgen Teller or Mondino or whatever, a big photographer or director to make your content, and it was very exclusive. Now you have to have a lot of content and a lot of creativity. So how do you cast all those creators? Where do you find them?
On TikTok. Mm-hmm. You know, I think, you know, we have a really dedicated team to all social content. We've just hired someone who's come on who's really focused on finding creators that have a hook or an idea or a point of view that really resonates with Loewe. And it really comes back to this idea of authenticity. Can they translate what they're good at into a Loewe product? Can they translate a story that we want to tell in a way that they normally tell stories? And, you know, is it a girl you know, flying around a pole wearing a Loewe clothing? Is it about someone desperately trying to find a shoe right before the fashion show starts? Those are sort of all situations that we have found ourselves in, and while they may feel irreverent on TikTok, they're actually incredibly relatable to what we do day to day.
Yeah, so we have to think of artists in a new way, in a way, more like creators and really smart creating.
And maybe just to add on the creator, it's one that we saw in the video. There was this creator who's commenting and basically explaining why did Loewe put like a pumpkin in its new store. I think it's in Japan or Korea.
Yes, in Tokyo.
In Tokyo. And then she explains like, you know, how it's built and what's the relationship also with Loewe, the fact that when you walk closer, like the texture is actually different. So it's, again, you know, very linked to the DNA of Loewe, which is obviously around like crafts, like in its heritage. And it's kind of looping everything back together. But to be honest, there's very few brands today that are willing to kind of not necessarily let go, because obviously we know it's an industry where there's a lot of image, so you have to be careful. But Loewe does it in an agile way, as you said.
Well, and I think you point out something that's, you know, we try very hard to do, which is find creators that connect authentically to our brand values. Is it craft? Is it art? You know, we worked with a creator called Andrea Animates for our holiday collection this year, which was all about illustration, and she creates these incredible environments using felted wool, which is another material that we've used in past collections. So there was a real synergy between what she does in her art form and the story we were trying to tell, and it worked incredibly well for us.
So of course we don't have the time to go further on the customer relationship and also on how the way that you can engage with audiences directly, but that's an important point. I want to ask you a last question about your media organization. Do you have like a point of contact dedicated to TikTok? How does it work? What is the profile of the people you use? You know,
we're definitely building out our teams to support, you know, the need for more content. As you said, there is such a need for more content, additional contents, really sort of having an always-on strategy, being able to push out things day over day. So, you know, we do have a social team who's dedicated to creating different kinds of content. As we said, you know, we're really seeing an uptick in needing site-specific content. So that's definitely something that we will be focusing on moving forward. And I think it's only natural that we'll have more and more people that are dedicated just to this platform.
Thank you so much, Tatiana and Julian.
Thank you very much.